Hi, my name is Emily Soulias, and I did my chemistry presentation on the Flint water crisis. Saving money. The city of Flint, Michigan wanted to save money and had a few meetings in the year of 2013. Ultimately, they decided that the best way for them to save money would be by switching water providers. This was supposed to save them a lot of money within the next 25 years. When they switched water providers, the Flint crisis officially began in April of 2014. The plan. To the right of the slide is a picture of the Flint River. The city decided to switch from Detroit Water and Sewerage Department to the Carignan Water Authority. However, they needed about 2 years to build a connection from the Flint River to the Carignan Water Authority. The city of Flint decided to move quickly, and they used the Flint River as their water before the connection was finished. In order to prevent corrosion of metal in the water, the city of Flint was supposed to treat the Flint River with corrosion inhibitors. They chose not to do this, and they wanted to wait and see what would happen if they did not treat it. This was clearly a huge mistake. The effects of water after the lead contamination. The residents noticed, once the water changed over, Flint residents began noticing a huge difference in their water. As you can see in the picture on this slide, the water was a yellow-brown color. It smelled and tasted bad. The residents were alarmed when this began coming out of their tap. They knew they were going to have to use this water to bathe, cook, and drink. Majority of Flint is below the poverty line, so when the residents spoke up about this issue, government officials blew them off and assured them the water was just fine. After ignoring the residents' claims, the state altered reports and evidence of when they tested for lead in the water. When they were releasing these false reports, everybody outside of Flint believed the issue was not that serious. The residents of Flint still knew something was not okay. Lead contamination. The water in Flint was contaminated with lead from old pipes. All over there was very high levels of lead in the water. The CDC gives examples of short-term effects of lead contamination. They say that it can negatively affect people's appetite and memory. They will have headaches and constipation. Even over a short period of time, it can cause kidney and brain damage and lead to death. Lead contamination continued. The CDC also stated effects if exposed for a long time. People can become depressed, distracted, and very sick. This can also put people at risk for high blood pressure and many diseases that will affect someone's health forever. The levels of lead in Flint's water were extremely high and will have a severe impact on Flint's residents for a while. Physical effects. As well as the health effects that lead-contaminated water caused, it also caused physical effects to residents. It gave people skin rashes, itchy skin, and hair loss. In the picture on the slide, you can see lesions on a Flint resident after she was exposed to the Flint River water. This came shortly after the water switch. She could be washing her hands and get these lesions, and this happened to a majority of Flint residents. Children effects. The Flint water crisis had a major effect on children's growth, physically and mentally. Stanford Children's Hospital did a study and found out that lead poisoning affects children more than adults. It is due to the fact that their brains and nervous systems are far more sensitive to the effects of lead early on. This was very alarming for the Flint community because they were unaware of what they would have to go through depending on how their children and themselves were infected. Children in the classroom. Erica Green stated in an article that in Flint, 30,000 children were affected. This has caused a major increase in children who receive special education services in Flint. It could be due to these children having high amounts of lead in their systems. It has been an issue since the water crisis, and it is extremely hard for the city to keep up with the constant needs from these students. Okay, I'm going to show a short clip. In this video, we will watch a mother discuss the impact of the water crisis on her family, specifically her young son.
Since 2014, Flint, Michigan has been synonymous with tainted water. 5 years on, city officials are still struggling to make the water safe.
So are concerns.
It affects the way that we cook, the way that we brush our teeth, the way that, we just use water in general.
In 2016, Ariana Hawk's second oldest son, Sincere, then 2 years old, was on the cover of Time magazine after developing painful blisters and rashes.
His thing was just the fear of the water. Even him as a 6-year-old, he still says, the water is dangerous. He don't like it. He avoided it as much as possible.
Despite officials' assurances at the time that the water was safe, Hawk blames herself.
I'm his mom. I should have been protective. I should have knew better. I should have been educated more, and this wouldn't have happened.
Although her 4-year-old daughter, Aliana, doesn't have symptoms, blood tests show she has high lead levels.
It's devastating. It's very hard to deal with on a daily basis. It's hard to even just deal with as a parent because sometimes I feel like I could do better, but it's not my fault that the water is like this. It's not something that I asked for. It's not something that I chose for my kids. Come on, sisters. Come on, sisters.
As you can see, the mother feels guilty for what happened. However, there was nothing more she could do. The government did not speak up at the appropriate time and tell adults to stop using this infected water. And as you saw, although her son had the physical effects, her daughter has lead in her blood. But her daughter did not have any physical effects yet. More than lead contamination. Lead contamination was not the only bad thing that came out of switching the water providers in Flint. There was a Legionnaires' outbreak during this time as well, which was also due to the water. This outbreak killed 12 people and made 87 others extremely sick. This was the third worst outbreak of this disease in America. This disease was also caused by the city not adding enough chlorine to the water. However, after this outbreak, the city added too much chlorine, which increased the level of total trihalomanes, which are chemicals that cause cancer. So that was another 2 issues they had to deal with on top of the lead contamination that these Flint residents were faced with without their control. Final decision. In 2016, the governor of Michigan declared a state of emergency. During this time, they took responsibility and began delivering water bottles to each house that did not have clean water. People had to use bottled water to cook, bathe in, and drink. Still to this day, people are still delivering water bottles to their house. They go through about 3,000 cases a week because people still are not comfortable with it. They finally began replacing the pipes that were infected with lead in hopes to make Flint's water clean again. It is difficult for residents to trust the city of Flint still, 6 years later. However, the water quality has finally improved and is safe to drink currently. It is still being worked on, but there is nowhere near as much lead contamination in the Flint water as there was in the beginning of this crisis.